All right, let's talk about the Detroit Lions here for a little bit. Look, this is a Lions team. Everyone knows they're one of the top contenders in the entire National Football League. Odds makers have them right behind the San Francisco 49ers to make a run to the Super Bowl in 2024. But the Lions clearly are approaching this offseason with a smart strategy to fix their biggest weakness. We've already seen it earlier this offseason trying to address their secondary. The Lions have made another move in that direction. I think it's part of a larger theme that Detroit is taking. Let's get into this article. It involves cornerback Jerry Jacobs, and we'll talk about it more in detail on the other side. This is from heavy.com. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported on March 6th that the Lions do not plan to tender Jacobs, who is a restricted free agent. That decisions will make Jacobs an unrestricted free agent. Basically means they're going to cut him. Jacobs started 29 games for the Lions over the past 3 seasons. He started a career-high 12 contests for Detroit during 2023. However, Jacobs lost his starting job after a Week 14 loss to the Chicago Bears. He played just 1 defensive snap in the team's final 4 games. Jacobs was also inactive for all 3 Detroit playoff contests. All right, so you pair this by itself, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But when you look at the other moves, you look at getting rid of the quarterbacks coach Dre Bly, you look at releasing safety Tracy Walker earlier this offseason, it looks like the Lions are taking a wholesale approach to where it doesn't matter if you were not up to our standard in 2023, you're gone because we got to fix the secondary. I think this is an exciting update for the Lions going forward. Mize, I'm curious what your thoughts are. But first, Detroit fans in the comment section below, we're talking secondary right now, of course. But give us another position group you think the Lions should focus on this offseason. Obviously, they're really good in a lot of areas, but there are always areas to improve. Give us another position group you think Detroit should focus on this offseason in the comment section below. But Miles, give me your thoughts on this move and just everything the Detroit Lions are doing so far.
Yeah, Nick, I think this goes with the story we had a few days ago, a week or so ago, about the Lions, their new DB coach, the Shea Townsend, and what he's looking for in this DB room. I think, like you said, he's going for the wholesale approach. He's attacking this DB room, and either you're with him or you're not, and they're making some aggressive moves at the cornerback position. Obviously, earlier this week, they also signed back Emmanuel Mosley, a guy who's been injured in the past, but apparently he's got the goods. Now, a guy like Jacobs, on the other hand, not so much. They're going to let him walk. And I think that Detroit is really going to, like you said, aggressively attack this DB position. And I think we're going to see some big moves. And I think they could even do both. I think they could get a big time free agent in the DB department and also spend a high draft pick on a DB as well. I think they're going to make some big time moves. And lately, I like what I've seen out of the Lions as far as drafting guys. You look at Brian Branch, he did very well last year. So far, early success on getting high draft picks with our early success at the DB position with the high draft picks. Also, bringing in a guy like Cameron Sutton really looks good so far as well. I think that this Lions team has made a lot of moves here, and I really like the direction that Shea Townsend and them are going with the DB position. And I'm curious to see, once free agency hits, if this is the first shoe to drop for the Lions. I think they're going to try to make a big move at corner and potentially make another one down in the draft as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you look at the Lions and how they're going to have to approach this problem going forward. It's having the right mentality to how to address it. And you brought up the Emmanuel Mosley, the fact they're bringing back into the fold. Obviously, he essentially didn't play for Detroit in 2023. So what they're saying is, listen, if you played for us, and unless you played at a high level like Branch, you're gone. We are not going to just sit here and stand idly by and just rely on continuity. We're not going to rely on this great culture we have in Detroit and this great locker room. Because look, all these guys are part of that locker room. All these guys are part of that culture. Every single player, Walker, Jacobs, they were all part of it. Some ways they were negative, some ways they made positive. But the reality is they were part of that great Detroit Lions culture. That's undeniable. But you cannot let complacency, and most importantly, you can't let continuity derail you from your long-term goals. Because the Lions, I think after they lost to the 49ers, Dan Campbell, in his emotional remarks after the game, I think he said it best, and I'm paraphrasing him a little bit, where he said, listen, it's going to get harder from here. And the reality is true. Everyone's gunning for the Lions. Your schedule's going to get harder. You're playing a first-place schedule, right? the NFC was a little weaker this past season. Let's be totally honest. I think the NFC is going to get better and better. The Packers look like they're better. The Bears look like they may finally get a franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams if they go with him number one overall, right? The division could get a lot tougher. Life's going to get harder. You can't just rely on continuity. You can't just sit there and say, well, we'll make a few changes around the margins. We'll swap out a position coach, right? We'll get rid of Dre Bly. He didn't do a great job. We'll bring in Deshae Townsend and he'll help clean some things up. You can't just do that. You can't just rely on those little moves around the periphery. You've got to get rid of everybody and anybody that doesn't put you in a position to win a championship, because that's what the Lions are in right now. They are in the middle of 2024, and depending on what they do with Goff's contract situation, 2025 and maybe 2026 championship window right here over these next 3 years, 2 to 3 years. I think probably 2, but it could be 3 depending how they handle the salary cap and the contracts and things like that. If you're in the middle of your title window, if someone's on your football team that isn't helping you win championships, get rid of them without a second thought. Right? Don't even think about it. Tracy Walker not helping us, get rid of him. Right? Jacobs not helping us, get rid of him. Even if they're great guys in the locker room, even if they're good team guys, it doesn't matter, right? You built the culture. You went from 0 to 90, right? You did the hardest thing possible no one could have imagined with Detroit. But the really hard thing, the thing that really separates the good from the great, is can you be the brutal team that goes from 90 to 100 to make those brutal decisions? The Patriots did that for 2 decades, right? The Chiefs have done that a number of times. They traded away Tyreek Hill, right? They made some brutal decisions. If you're willing to make those brutal, tough decisions that you know is going to help your football team win a championship, you have a chance. That was one of the key questions that I had for the Lions coming into this offseason. Could they make those kind of decisions? And so far, that's exactly what they're doing. And because of that, I'm a lot more optimistic about Detroit going into this offseason than I was after they lost for San Francisco. I think the future continues to remain really bright. And look, I know they're right behind the 49ers, but as we saw, they're really, really close. And if they keep making these kind of moves, it's going to be a neck and neck battle come 2024.
Yeah, Nick. And this reminds me of something that happens all the time in the NFL. And I'm surprised we haven't seen something like this before. But you look how many times a new head coach or a new offensive coordinator comes in and they're like, well, this quarterback, he's not my guy. I can't win if it's not my guy, or I want to bring my guys in to get my system running. Why can't they do that with the cornerback position as well? They bring in a new guy like Deshae Townsend. He came out aggressively stated, hey, I have a type at corner. And it's like you said, you got to make the tough decisions. Let him cut the guys. Let him bring in who he wants to. Start the ball rolling. Like you said, they've done the hard part. They built the culture. Now, get guys in. Either they fit or they don't. So I think this is a really smart move, letting Deshae Townsend start out on the right foot and rebuild this cornerback room in his image. I think it's going to be a great move from the Lions going forward.